And we thought it would be interesting to put these three keynote speakers together in a debate. It's not only interesting for you as an audience, but also for themselves, because they never got the chance before to know each other's work. So today they're going to talk with each other.
Peer, Gabriella, Davy, we had three different approaches on customer service in tourism and heritage. And I think there are quite some differences in what we heard today. So we thought it was a good idea to confront your opinions, your experiences. Peer, I would love to start with you, if you feel comfortable.
I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Peer, the baseline that struck me the most was the one you described as the future is more digital than personal. While we in our project, and Davy and Gabriella, have been focusing on the human approach in customer care. We even consider everybody we worked with as ambassadors, and I was curious how Visit Aarhus and you would relate to that ambassadorship and hostmanship while you chose to do everything digitally.
Yes. Of course, the tourist information and the guest service in the future also need to be personal. A lot of people will like personal information still. But I think it's necessary to look at the global trends and how tourists today react and how they manage the way they get information when they are at a destination. And there is a growing target group towards city tourism where they use the digital platforms to get their information, and they don't need to get into the TICs. But of course they would like to meet people. I just told a story about my son. He's 19 years old. We went to a holiday in Barcelona, and of course I had to go into the TIC to take some pictures. There were nobody at the TIC in July in Barcelona. But he had a lot of knowledge about what's happening in Barcelona, much more than I had. And I have been to a web page, and I have tried to get some brochures and so on. Then he told me, yes, on the internet and on my digital platforms, I've been speaking with a lot of different guys about this. And I also met some friends which I have met on the internet, and they were speaking with me and told me the story about the city. So but it was not the TIC who did it. Yeah. It was the people they met. And that's a future trend. And my son is 19 years old, and all his friends is having his information in that way. So we need to find a way to approach this new target groups. That's the future tourists.
It's about recommendation and the word of mouse theory, I guess. We received a question from the audience referring to that, how we can lower the threshold for people to get to know that kind of information. And whether it's maybe a generational thing that other tourists need the personal approach from the TICs, from our staff members, while the younger, the silent travelers, do it in a different way?
Yes, I think it has something to do with the generations. Mm-hmm. And I could also go to Barcelona with my parents, and of course they would like to go into the TIC. Mm-hmm. They will never orientate on a digital way, and they will not go and speak with a local on the train to get some information. So it has something to do with the generations. And also, that's an important thing about, I will say that's my key issue. It says you had to do it, you had to look at the tourists you have in your destination, also the tourists you would like to have in the future. And then you create your guest service strategy in front of that.
So you have to be aware about what's been told about your destination.
Yeah.
You have to know.
And know the guests.
And know the guests. Okay, Gabriella, in which way do you think we can combine both approaches, whether we are talking about a lot about front office workers, about the way we empower them to give them a voice, to know what they do. Does their job change because of the fact that so many information is flowing in a digital way, so many recommendations are being done by others instead of them? Does it mean it's a job change, and can you relate to that?
Definitely, as I already mentioned in my speech, that the the midi workers at the tourist offices, they need to be aware that their job is changing a lot. And one thing I strongly recommend is that they should always be the one in their company working with Twitter, working with Facebook, working with TripAdvisor, working with all these tools. It should be them doing it. Or at least they should be strongly involved, and very often they are not involved. Yeah, because they manage to say, yeah, you know, we don't trust them whether they will create a chaos or whether there will be a shitstorm or whatever. But they trust them not to create a shitstorm in their daily work at the Bali. Yeah. So why should they create a shitstorm on Facebook, for example? It needs clear advice. It needs have to clear roles how you do that. But they need to learn how to work with that and to be trusted. And I also think that the truth is in between somewhere, because I like a lot these gimmicks, technical things. I go on TripAdvisor, I go on all the sites, and I have the applications and so on. I do that. And I think there's the future of tourist offices is in the personal approach. I think it's not in applications and stuff like that. But we need to be aware that there might be a change in how we use these tools. Like one of the tools I've seen, which I think will definitely be something of the future, is that the people are not directly present. Yeah, you can see it in Ghent has done something like that, and the best version in my eyes is in the airport of Munich, where they needed to be present in many different parts of the airport, and they couldn't afford the employees, so they put there like kind of tools, machines, and with a 3D screen, and when you approach and you press the button, a real person in 3D shows up who is talking to you in real time, in real size. And when you stand there, you forget that this person is just on the screen and is actually sitting on the back office. Yeah, this requires a change in the thinking of the approach of the Bali workers, of course. It's a challenge, but I think this is where the future probably goes, but not in a virtual phase, talking to you in a virtual way. I don't think that this will work. Yeah? Or maybe being mobile, what you said. Yeah.
Okay. We also received another question about how we can involve our hotels, but also the tourist industry, other players in the field, as being an ambassador, and also manage the way the information is flowing from their sources and recommendations. That's a bigger question, that's a big challenge. I don't know if any one of you has got an idea.
Well, I think that's a very big challenge indeed, because when I look at our museum, our location is at a spot where tourists who come to Hasselt often visit our museum as a first place of interest in Hasselt, because it's very near a big parking lot. So we often act as a kind of tourist office, because after they visit, people ask us, oh, and what can we visit now, and where can we have a good meal, and we're staying for 2 nights, what can we do tonight? So I think it's very important that there is a constant, a permanent flow of information between the partners, the museums, the hotels, and the tourist office. And the way to manage that, I think, is the challenge. And we often have meetings with the tourist office. We communicate on a regular basis, but we cannot know everything and know all the activities that are taking place. Often it happens that one of our receptionists has to go on Google or on a certain kind of website to see what else is there to do. So they have to use those applications too. So the management of the information flow is very important. It's the big challenge, I think, because it's more and more and more.
We also worked with that part when we closed down the TICs, while some of the hoteliers was not, they didn't know what to do. before they send some tourist to the tourist information and so on. But we develop a sort of tool. So when they open up the computers in the morning at the hotels, then they each day get the information that the front office should tell the guest if they come and ask what to do in the city today. And so you can call it a kind of intranet. But also with all the informations situated on the computer at the front desk at the hotels. At the same time, as I showed you, it was these mobile screens. So we make training courses. So Bente, which is in charge at my office at the part, go out to the hotel receptions when they have reception meetings, the staff, and train them in how to use the touch screens. And take the guests to the touch screens, tell them, yeah, you can see how the buses are here and what the opening hours is and so on. And they took that part. And then I asked them, why did you do that? And then they said, okay, because when the people are visiting our hotels or our attractions, also the attractions are doing this, then we know if we are going to give them something more than they expect, then we're going to have the best ratings on TripAdvisor. So it has something, they are just doing what the concierge do at the American hotels. So they see that's the job they're doing. And then who's going to put the information out to the hotels? Yeah, that's the back office staff, as before was front office when we have the TIC. So of course we still have employees working with the guest service data.
Okay, so that's the back office with the manager.
Yeah, and I really strongly recommend let your staff do that. Don't go everywhere, talk yourself, just because you're important. Your staff is important. They need to talk to your partners. They need to be visible and need to be given importance. Then they will really step into ownership and they will be much more fond of their job and they will try to get more information and make more out of it. Yeah? But they don't even know who they need to talk to. Yeah? I had I can't say where it was, but I had recently a training here and people told me, we don't have these leaflets anymore, so we don't know anything. So I asked, where do you get your information from? Well, we are told from above, maybe, but very often we read it in the newspaper. Yeah? I said, okay, find out by yourself who is the one you should address. Go and check out who is responsible in this museum. Go there and say, I need your information. Let's have contact on a regular basis. Do it yourself. Yeah? So the staff needs to be given this importance to do that.
And the opportunity. But it's also about, we always get to the same point about communication flow. Whether it flows from a hotel, from a DMO, or a TIC to a hotel, or whether it flows from the managers to the staff and staff to managers. But I think many people, Gabriella, appreciated the way you addressed the managers today. I think the message is clear. I hope so. But then again, I was wondering if you have a key or solution for the front office workers to open up as a real host. Is that the part you just told us about? Do it yourself, take responsibility, and just make the most of your own job?
Of course, it is a big part of what I do, empowering people, encouraging people to take responsibility. And sometimes it's really about leading your boss. Yeah? I'm pretty sure that many managers they will say, but they are giving all the information they need. Of course, I do that. And I'm pretty sure that the staff will say, no. So there's a lag in between, yeah? But at the same time, it's not just about, I need to receive everything in order to be able to work in a good way. No, you really need to step in and see, where can I make changes? Yeah? Very often I'm told, like, I already told it I couldn't make changes. Yeah? They didn't listen. No, that's not true. The way you address, the way you talk to people, you need to also to think about the way you're addressing your boss. Yeah? Come up with solutions, not with a complaining attitude. They will never listen to you with a complaining attitude.
I think Davy listened to the learning points, since you just told us that your staff was involved in installing the new front desk. Mm-hmm. Were they also involved in installing the hostmanship project? Did they get a say in it, or?
Well, no. No, yes and no. last years we had several trainings in our museum, or staff had several trainings organized by the city. But it was my colleague who noticed the hostmanship concept on a conference, and I started digging in that hostmanship concept, and I was triggered by it because it was so hands-on, so practical, and I contacted the people of Hostmanship Netherlands, and I started to talk to them, and since we were in a transition project, a renovation project, it was a good opportunity to rethink reception, rethink the museum, but also rethink reception, because we were often experienced as a very closed museum. We had a little entrance door. People had to buy tickets at a desk what was in a corner. So that's, for instance, the receptionist explicitly said, we want to make eye contact with visitors when they come in. And that was, for instance, something that the designer of our new exhibition, our new presentation, also took into account when he designed the reception desk. So they were also involved in not only in the organization of the reception, but also in the way we were telling the story of Geneva, because they know what people want to know about Geneva. What's the difference between Geneva and gin? In our former presentation, gin, there was no mention of gin. Terecht, maar ik weet niet. But now it's in the presentation. People can find it, and of course in our bar there, that's the place where questions are asked, because the visitors have someone to ask the questions to, and they can answer, and they can. Yeah, of course it's a bar. That's a completely different environment than a reception desk. But they had their. They had their saying in the whole concept of the renovation.
So you do feel you did establish a communication chain between you and your staff? Can we say?
I think so. Yes, we have weekly staff meetings, and I'll try not to say too much on those meetings, but and let it come from them. For example, if they know whether there are activities in the city that I am not aware of, that the colleagues are not aware of, they can say it in our meeting, and it's in the report, and everyone sees it. They're very. I'm aware that they're very important for as a face of our museum. So.
Per, you let go of the front office staff. How did they react?
First of all, it was not all the front office staff who stopped. While one of them is now in charge of the guest service in Aarhus, and the other one is our online manager. The online manager is 55 years old, so he's not 30 or something. But we re-educated her while she said, "This is my dream to work with that." And the guest service manager has just been. Now she's burning for this strategy and so on, and I have involved them both in the new strategy. I have said which direction I would like to go in towards digital information, towards be closer to the guests and so on, and they have done everything, so it's easy for me to stand and speak. What I liked in your project here was the story about that you're training the staff at the taxi drivers and so on, and I would like to say that's the key. It's not what's happening on the TICs. It's while you are all pros and you can do that, and you can give them the right information, but it's what the guest experience when they meet all the other partners, which is not in the TICs or at the front office or when they are visiting your museum and so on, while you're pros. But there's a lot of people out there who is not pros into giving guest service. So focus on them. Also,
we will try. I hope so. But that's also the key idea behind the fact that you told us the information has to come to where the visitor is, and he doesn't have to seek it out. Do you see other ways ambassadors can do that? Or, for example, in Aarhus. And also there was a question, I guess, from Klaar, van Leuven, klaar in de weg? Ja. Would you like to ask your question yourself? Yeah? Ellie,
It's okay.
Yeah?
I had a question for Pia. Did you collect feedback from the visitors using the digital platform, and could they rate it versus personal contact?
What we do, we have a general measure on guest satisfaction, which the Danish Tourist Boards is using in Denmark, and they also measure on Aarhus. And it's when we have the tourist information, we have on a score up to 5. We have a score on 4 after we shut down the TICs and put it out close to the guests in different ways. We have now a score on 4.3, and that's the highest in Denmark. And what's also important is when you're over 4.2, then you're going to that the guests are going to be your recommends. So I think that's the measuring. But what we don't know is about the digital way which is better, or it's the that we are bringing out you can say our TIC staff close to the guests. We don't have any measuring on that.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I would add a final question in your digital platform. I'm just curious, the users, if they would still prefer personal contact above the good information they got. But your answer was clear.
Okay. Are there any other questions that pop up in your heads right now for the 3 keynote speakers? No. Okay. I think we... Yeah. Yeah.
Also, just a question for Pierre, if I may ask. Based on what information, or based on which knowledge, did you make this big change in August? Like you said, I closed down the tourist information offices. Based on what information? Was it a study? Was it a research? Or is it just your personal knowledge? How could you make this change happen?
It was not my personal knowledge, and what we could see that the amount of visitors at our TIC was decreasing. That was the first important thing, and we could see, and that also that we used more money on lesser guests. That was one of the main thing. And then all these, what we have in Aarhus, we have a cluster towards IT, IKT. So we have a lot of experts in the city towards all the digital platforms who was growing and so on. And also in my board, there was one of the leading experts inside this area. And they just, you can say, they bang on with a lot of information about what's the future trends and so on, and you're using all your money on the wrong stuff. While the number of guests was, you can say, it was not going down, but the gap between the number of guests in the tourist information, and then we also start growing a little bit towards tourists. The gap between the number of guests visiting Aarhus and the number of guests visiting the TIC was too big. And that would also say, when you have that big gap, and I don't know about any one of you is measuring the number of guests visiting your hotels and attractions and so on, and then, what can you say, compare it to the number of guests at your TIC. And the difference, if the gap is growing, then there is something wrong. Then there is a lot of guests you're not in dialogue with. And we need to get in dialogue with these guests. And that was, I guess, the main explanation is that the gap was growing. I don't know, was it good enough?
Thank you.
Okay. So it was a well reflected upon decision.
No, yes, it was well reflected, but we couldn't go out and learn anything while no one had done that. Mm-hmm. So I also know we were risking our jobs when we were saying we are going to go in that direction. But we could also lose our jobs while you're having a TIC when there is a lot of people coming into the city, but no one is using the TA or lesser is using the TIC. So it was, you can say, it was in Denmark pest or cholera. So it was really, it was really a burning platform.
And a first timer.
And a first timer, yeah.
Okay. Any ideas from our other key speakers to finish?
I think actually we are not so far as it might seem from with our ideas. I think the truth lies in between, and each city has to look for its own way to do things. There's not a general way for anybody. Yeah, big cities, small cities, even the small cities, they have differences. So you need to check what's good for you, and you find a wonderful way to do the best in your city. Yeah, so there is not a contradiction. You have to be wise and see, not to be too gimmick-minded just because of the sake of it, because the young travelers are like that. So they're also different. Yeah, so I think the truth lies in between.
Okay. I will gather up all the conclusions in my roundup later, but I will thank you for this debate. No questions left? Anyone? No, thanks. Okay, Evita, then the floor is yours again. Thank you so much.